Good Sunday morning. My name is Dr. Denise Schornowski, and this is this week's A Dose from Dr. Denise. I hope you had a wonderful week and are enjoying your Sunday. I had a lot of things come to me this week, and what happens is I write notes of what comes to me, and then I try to process it, and then I share it for 10 minutes. So each week I record a 10-minute video and I release it to Facebook, and I try to share things that certainly apply to me personally, but I try to share messages that I think that God sends to me. I know that God sends to me, and things that you might be able to use in your own personal life. So if you like these messages, share them and like my page, A Dose from Dr. Denise, especially if you think it's a message that the world needs to hear. So today's really part B of what I talked about last week. Last week, I let you know that we had to put our dog Izzy down, and she was put down Friday morning. She had bit someone while she was here and in Texas, and luckily it wasn't a bad bite, but it was one that was a warning sign to us. And there was a lot of things, more symbolic things that I took away from it than I realized, and that's really what I want to share with you today. So there's 6 things, and I'm going to try to step through them in 10 minutes. And the first thing I want to share is that you're free to make whatever choices that you want. That's the beauty of being a human being, is that we have this consciousness and we have free will. God has given us free will, and that separates us from many in the animal kingdom, that we have free will. And so we're free to make whatever choices we want. What we have to remember is that we are not free from the consequences of those choices. And so I was free to keep an animal that was showing some aggression, and that would have been a choice that I could have made here. What I would not have been free of is the consequence of that choice. And the consequence of that choice is that she could have bit me and hurt me. But a second point that I want to share is we make choices that we are, again, not free of the consequences of, but those choices then affect others. So it's one thing if my dog were to have bitten me and I would have been injured and needed medical care. It's another thing if my dog would have, God forbid, bitten a child or something where it could have been a horrible situation. In fact, my very good girlfriend let me know after I posted last Sunday, let me know of a personal story of her 5-year-old being bit. He's in his 20s now, but her 5-year-old was bit and had over 100 stitches. So she called me to let me know that we indeed made the right choice, which I knew. But I bring this up because, you know, in our great country, the United States of America, we're free, which is beautiful. But our choices have consequences. And so I've always loved some of Viktor Frankl's quotes, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl always says that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast should be balanced with the Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast. And again, as a chiropractor and someone that promotes healthy living, a very easy example I can give here is that you're free to eat whatever you want, and you're free to eat as much sugar as you want. Let's use sugar as an example. So you won't be free of the consequence of that choice, which is very often type 2 diabetes, which is a $1 trillion disease, business, industry, and has devastating side effects. So let's say the side effects of that are that you lose a limb, which is common when your circulation slows down due to the excessive amount of sugar that you're consuming. And so there's other people that are going to have to support you with that when you lose a limb. And so it's a very graphic example, but I just think it's really important to remember that we can make whatever choices we want. We're not free of the consequence of the choice. So that came to me this week. The third thing that came to me is it wasn't so much in Hamilton, New Jersey, where I live, but here in Texas, I was becoming afraid of my own dog. She had just shown some real aggressive behavior, and fear is a terrible thing. The book, A Course in Miracles, and the text that I read frequently, in addition to the Bible, really summarizes both of those books, in particular the New Testament. And it says that there are just simply two emotions, love and fear. And so if you had to boil every single thing down in your life, you can put it in one of those two categories. And fear is debilitating, and it's exhausting, and it literally takes the life out of you. And even though I had to just feel that just for a little bit with my dog, is definitely a feeling that I didn't want to stay and resonate at. So it reminded me that fear is not good unless it's putting things in perspective. And certainly when it's there, it's something that tells us that we need to make a change. The fourth thing that came to me is that not everyone can receive your love. In the Bible, it says that when you're rejected in a town, you should dust your feet off and walk out, that you've done everything that you can. But I believe Paul says this to the other disciples, that when he was preaching the gospel, I think it was even in his hometown, if people rejected him, you just dust your feet off and move on. And not everybody's going to receive your message and your love. And again, that came to me this week. I loved this dog for 10 years. And I have to tell you that I gave a whole lot more than I received. And so sometimes you have to get off the horse. You have to dismount. If you've tried and you tried and you tried in a situation, whether it's with another person or a colleague or a coworker or a family member or a child, you have done your best. You've given all the love and effort you can. There's going to be times in your life where it's time to close that chapter. And so again, it was just a dog, but for me, it was part of my family. And it taught me a lot, that I gave probably more than I received. The fifth thing that came to me is that it takes great strength to make big changes. And the longer you stay in a bad situation, the greater the energy is going to be required to overcome that situation. And so I knew for a while that we were having some problems with our dog. And so this took a lot more effort than had it been a couple years ago. And so I say that just to say is that the longer you wait to change a situation that you know you must change, the more effort, the more time, energy, and money you're probably going to have to put into that situation. So in some situations, sooner is better than later. Again, in one of my favorite business books of all time called Good to Great, Jim Collins says that when you know that you need to fire an employee, let's say you're a business owner, it is not only the right thing to do it as quickly as possible, it's not only good for the company, but it's good for the employee. Because even though it might hurt that employee in the immediate sense of losing a paycheck, in the long run, it's better for the employee so they don't have to stay at a place where they're not thriving. And so it takes strength to make big choices, but sometimes that's exactly what we need to do. And then the sixth and final thing that came to me is my husband and I decided that we would go get another puppy at the Humane Society. And this is how it happened. After we knew that we had to put our dog down, I was invited over to a neighbor's house to play Mahjong. Now, Mahjong is a tile game. It's sort of like rummy and cards, but it's with tiles. It's a Chinese game. It's absolutely wonderful, and I really highly recommend it because it's such a, it's not something you'll pick up quick, and it's probably going to take me several months to learn, but it's great for the brain, and certainly good in our country for the incidence of dementia and Alzheimer's that's skyrocketing. But anyhow, as I was sitting there, I was telling the woman next to me, who was about 65, my situation with my dog. And I said, I'm probably going to wait a few months before I get another animal. I'm really suffering with this one. And she said, I had the same experience. And she goes, and I waited 18 months. And the only person that suffered during that 18 months was me. And she just happened to be a volunteer at the Humane Society. So I know, and I've said this before, that God sends you signals. I know that that was a signal from God. And to tell you the truth, the only reason that I would not have gotten this absolutely adorable pooch, who I have called Grady because I'm grateful for him, the only reason I wouldn't have done it is because I would have feared what others would have thought. It's too soon, you need a break from animals, you need to mourn over your other pet. I mean, on and on and on. That's the only reason I would have done it, is that I would have been afraid of what others would think. And sometimes we have to just stop doing that. And so NYOB, none of your business. It is none of your business what other people think of you. It is none of your business what other people think of you. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get guidance and advice from family and friends, and certainly I do. I have mentors and I have family and my parents and my brothers and my husband and my sons and close personal friends that absolutely give me advice. But as far as what other people think of you and things that you rehearse over and over and over in your head, you need to let that go, because it's none of your business. So those are the 6 quick things. Over 10 minutes, so I'm not going to summarize those, and I do try to keep these to 10 minutes. But my dog passing sent me a lot of signals, and God will talk to you all the time if you just shut the noise down and listen a little bit harder, clear that static. Have a wonderful week. Peace out, and I'll see you next Sunday.